Hi everyone, welcome to my latest YouTube video. This video is going to be about the LSAT, which stands for Law School Admissions Test. I've taken the past 5 of them. This is the exam you take in order to get into law school. So that's about a year's worth of taking tests. So I'm going to give you some info about this exam and what is on it, and how to study for it, and some good strategies if you plan on taking this exam yourself. I studied a ridiculous amount of time for this exam. It's the hardest exam I've ever taken. I started by going with textbooks that I would get from various places, mainly libraries. I bought a bunch of different books, but there are 3 or 4 major publishing companies that have textbooks that are, several hundred pages long. So if you read those, you can get a real good idea of a good strategy. They all recommend a similar type of strategy because their readers are going to be so various, and they recommend a pretty standard strategy, the major publishers. I would also take old LSATs out of like packs. You can buy books that are like 10 old LSAT tests, and you can go through and you can take them. What I do is I time myself, 35 minutes per section, and I take them and try to do an accurate practice run. And I would log my scores. It's a good idea to take note of what you got on the practice exams, and also take note of the questions that were incorrect. Go back and analyze what was wrong. What subject were your wrong answers. It's a good idea to plug your wrong answers into a spreadsheet. Note the subjects, note the question type, and you can start to develop a pretty good strategy, and you'll most likely improve this way, slowly but surely. Like I said, my scores were low at first, and then they kept slowly improving, so you'll notice that too, most likely. Now I'll switch to some pretty in-depth information. If you don't plan on taking this test, you'll probably find this some of it pretty trivial, some of it will be real in-depth, so that'll be next. Okay, the first part of the LSAT is the logical reasoning. It's what a lot of people think of when they hear like a multiple choice exam. Only with LSAT logical reasoning, they have you read a little paragraph, maybe 3 or 4 sentences. You read the paragraph and you answer a multiple choice question, basically. This is an example of an LSAT logical reasoning question scrolling across the screen. When you take the test, you get about 1.5 minutes per question in this section, if you divide your time up correctly. So you have to read really fast. What you're looking for is, what is this writer trying to argue? And then you think of what he's arguing, and you come up with the best answer. So it's always going to be opinionated, and there are a lot of ways you can mark. You're allowed to write you're allowed to take notes as you're doing the questions, but you don't get very much time, and here are the answers that come about as quick. So you get about 1.5 minutes to do all of this, and then there's 25 or 26 of these in a row per section, and you get 35 minutes. I'll just kind of let it scroll through for you. I hate to talk so much when you're trying to read, but I'm just trying to show you how much time you have per question here. And there's your answer. So there are two of these sections. One's usually 25 questions long, and then another is about 26 questions long. And that's half of your LSAT. So the logical reasoning is a very important part, and it's not all that difficult. The other two sections I find tougher. Okay, another section on this test is called reading comprehension. It's basically reading a long passage or an essay and going over about 6 or 7 questions about that passage. It's usually going to be an argumentative piece of writing. So you have to go through what the author is arguing, and you want to figure out what point they're trying to make, what they are trying to convince you of, what they agree with or disagree with. So your job is to analyze the argument of that short passage. It's usually 3 or 4 paragraphs, and it's, you get about 9 minutes to. When you're given a reading comprehension section, you want to take note of what is the topic or subject of the article. You want to note the subject right away, because if you happen to know anything about that topic while you're reading it, you can start to predict what the answer or what the questions will be, and then a good idea of what the answer might be. Some popular subjects by the LSAT that they give commonly, they really like political science and government. They like medicine, like the medical profession, like nutrition, kinesiology, and stuff like that, and a lot of biology. They like economics, micro and macro economics, business administration, and they like philosophy. They like any they can pick from just a broad range of subjects. There are so many, but those are the common ones. The games section is known as a very difficult section. I think most of the books say that it's statistically the most difficult part of the test. As you can see in the background, these are my notes on, while I was studying for the games section. It's called logic games, but it's not very fun. It's basically, there are several variables. It's so difficult to explain. You're basically matching up variables, and you're coordinating rules of a game that are given to you, but you have to basically fill in blanks using just a ridiculous statistical formula that you basically have to invent. And there are strategies on how to handle this section, but they say it's sit down and do your best, and that's basically all you can do, even with the strategy they give you. So the logic games is, I think it's the most difficult section. There are 23 or 24 of these questions, and it's one of the sections that will be counted to your final score, and it's really grueling. It's just something you have to get through, even with a bunch of studying. So that's the games. Okay, and one last thing, there are actually LSAT classes, but I didn't take any of them. I don't learn a great deal from lectures and classes. I learn a lot more just reading out of the book. So if you're like me, you can just kind of teach yourself your own strategy out of the books. The LSAT itself is $180 per test. That's the fee as I make this video. Classes will run you, almost as much as like another semester of school full time. They get pretty expensive. So that's, if you want to take classes, they're probably good, but I didn't think it was worthwhile. So, okay, so to conclude my video, the LSAT is a very difficult exam. Be prepared. Don't be discouraged. Do your work. Do your studying. I recommend just doing the method that works best for you. It'll take a while to figure it out, but hang in there and beware of this exam. Don't underestimate it. It's very difficult. I spent 1 full year of my life studying for this exam. So good luck to you, and I hope your test goes well.